Robert Guadarrama, now how did you find out? We all knew that Ray Tensing was going to testify, but this was the first time we heard when he was going to testify.
That's right. Prior to today, we didn't really know when he would take the stand. We didn't know how many witnesses the defense was planning on calling. But today, right after court let out, the judge, Leslie Giz, came into the media room, as she has been, notifying the media what's happening the following day. Well, she informed us that tomorrow, Ray Tensing will take the stand.
And you're going to be in court for that, aren't you?
That's right. I'll be in court. I've been in court every single day so far, so I'll be in court tomorrow as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the other big surprise that happened inside the courtroom. The prosecution asked for the jury to be able to consider reckless homicide as a charge, correct?
That's right. It's a lesser charge. It carries a sentence of about 1 to 5 years, up to 5 years. And so it was brought up today before they even brought the jury in. So the jury was not present during this conversation. So let's take a look at, listen to how the prosecution brought it up in court this morning.
Charge, I would concede that the justification defense does apply to the murder. I don't think it applies to the manslaughter. I know in the prior jury trial that the court did give justification to the manslaughter. I would ask in this case that the court not give the justification defense to the manslaughter charge, and I would strongly ask the court to give reckless homicide as a lesser of murder. As the court knows, this is the second trial that we've been through this. The first jury was unable to reach a verdict, and in order to prevent a miscarriage of justice, where there could be a second hung jury, that the state feels that it's important that the court give the lesser included defense of reckless homicide.
And defense attorney Stu Matthews pushing back, disagreeing with this lesser charge. Let's listen.
We've been through another trial. The state had every opportunity to return a new indictment, including a count for reckless homicide if that was their desire. They haven't done that until the last minute here. I would suggest to the court that in order to charge this jury on reckless homicide, there must be some evidence in the record that fits the definition of reckless, which is found in section 2901.22c of the Ohio Revised Code. There's not one iota of evidence in this record that to this point in the trial that would suggest that Ray was anything other than committing an intentional act, which is what he's charged with.
And after hearing out both sides, Judge Leslie Giz notified both sides that she did do some research into case law when it comes to this exactly. Let's listen to her ruling.
That prior to all the evidence being out there, the prosecutor's office did have the statement from Mr. Tensing at the time the indictment was put forward. Am I right, Mr. Teeger? I mean, I know you didn't indict him, but
right.
you had it. You guys had
So, yeah, that was given on the
so
yes.
at that point, you could have made the decision. You know, I don't know how it's made, but at that point, I would think before all of this other external evidence was put into place, that decision could have been made, and it was not. And because I've seen the evidence and find nothing that would support reckless based on what I am hearing from other officers, his trainer, I'm unable to put it into play at this time.
All right, that's Judge Leslie Giz rejecting the prosecution's request that the jury be able to consider the lesser charge of reckless homicide. Let's get some perspective on this. Our team of legal analysts, Mike Allen, Clyde Bennett, Mark Crumbine. I'm going to start with you, Mike. What does this mean? This is a heck of a punt, isn't it?
It really is a punt, but it really comes to no surprise that any lawyer that's been watching that trial. I've said from the beginning, reckless homicide and or negligent homicide were the appropriate charges. We go through the first trial. The prosecutor got a mulligan because of the hung jury. Could have fixed the problem, as Judge Giz just pointed out, for reasons known only to Mr. Dieters. He chose not to. That's why the prosecutor had to ask.
Now, if you were Ray Tensing's defense attorney, what would be going through your mind right now?
I would be very pleased with the judge's decision not to allow reckless homicide, because that's one less way that he can't be convicted. Now they have to put all of their eggs in the purposeful murder basket along with voluntary manslaughter. There was no evidence adduced to trial for voluntary manslaughter, so now they're stuck with purposeful murder, and I think they can prove justifiable defense. So I'd be very pleased if I was Mr. Matthews with the judge's ruling on the reckless homicide request for an instruction.
Telling the jury, after all those purposeful acts that you did, that you didn't mean to kill him. I meant to stop the threat.
A riveting day in court as the man who shot and killed Sam DuBose during a traffic stop on July 19, 2015, took the stand. Good evening, I'm Rob Williams. In addition to Ray Tenzing testifying, we learned closing arguments will happen on Monday, and then the jury will get the case. Let's review what happened in court today because it was hours of drama. Ray Tenzing took the stand at about 12:30 this afternoon. He was wearing a blue suit and blue tie. He's 27 years old, 6'3", 220 pounds, single, no kids. At the start of questioning by defense attorney Stu Matthews, Tenzing testified he wanted to be a police officer at a young age. Matthews was attempting to give the jury a look at Tenzing's history. Then Matthews and Tenzing took the jury through a series of traffic stops he made prior to a stop of Sam DuBose. In each of these stops, Matthews played Tenzing's body camera video, and in each of these stops, Tenzing pulled the driver over for not having a front plate, and in each of these stops, everything ended peacefully. Then Stu Matthews had Ray Tenzing describe what happened when he pulled over Sam DuBose. For the first time, this jury heard from Tenzing.
I advised him that until I can figure out who he was, to go ahead and take off his seatbelt. And that's when I reached my left hand towards his driver's door to open it.
What was your intention at that point?
My intention was, as we saw in the previous stop, was to open the door and get his car keys right then and there and put them on the roof, and then secure him in handcuffs with the same technique inside the car and get him out of the car.
That didn't happen, right?
No, sir.
What happened?
As I reached with my left hand to open the door, and at some point during our conversation, he had put the key back in the car ignition.
Did you see him do that?
Yes, at some point, yes. I do recall that.
Saw him actually put it in the ignition, you think?
Yes, I believe the key was in his left hand at some point and went back to his right, and he just put it back in the ignition, and that was it.
Okay, and then what happened?
So as I go to open the car door, with his left hand, that's through the open window, he reached out and he took his car door and he pulled it back shut. And at the same time he did that, he had reached up with his right hand, he turned the car on.
What did you do in response to that?
I reached in with my left hand in an attempt to grab his car keys and turn the car off.
Why did you do that?
I was so close to his window, I thought I had a very good chance to turn his car off and stop him from taking off right there. With it being 6:30 on a Sunday evening in the summertime, going into a neighborhood, I thought I could stop a pursuit right there before a pursuit happened, since those are very dangerous. And so I reached in with my left hand to try to grab his car keys, and that's when, just a fluid motion, he had turned the car on, and he immediately, with his right hand, he went down to the center console and shifted his car from park and just put it in a drive extremely fast, and just mashed the accelerator to the floor at that point.
You've heard it described that you lunged into his car. What was that about? You used the term reach.
I reached in, I didn't jump off my feet, sorry. And at that point, I thought my arm was, I thought it became trapped. I thought my arm became trapped in the steering wheel somehow, because I felt my arm it just felt pinned, just caught. And that's when my body kind of rotated since my arm was pulled. And after being able to review the video, I thought my arm was tangled through the top of his steering wheel, but now I know that he took his left arm and actually grabbed or pinned my arm against his steering wheel. And as that happened, he just smashed the accelerator, and my body was just, it had turned backwards, and I began to fall backwards. I was facing his trunk, and I had lost my balance, and I was coming backwards. As he was accelerating, and I could feel his car, since the way he pulled over on the curb, that there was another car parked in front of him, but I could feel his car as he had punched the accelerator, turning into me. I could feel his car coming into me. And I'm falling backwards, and during this time I told him twice, stop, stop.
You were there with a lawyer at that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
You had seen the video before you went and gave that statement?
I'd seen the video just a couple hours before I gave my statement.
Did you see in the video that you did not have your hand or arm caught in the steering wheel?
We didn't break down the video. We just watched it in full speed. So no, not at the time. I still thought my arm was caught in the steering wheel.
Is that why you told the police that?
Yes, sir.
Did you and your lawyer formulate a story you were going to tell before you went and met with the CIS people?
No, sir.
Are you telling the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the truth here today, Ray?
I'm telling you what I experienced. I experienced it during those seconds, yes.
Was it your purpose to kill Sam DeBose on July 19th, 2015?
No, sir.
What was your purpose?
It was to stop the threat.
An emotional Ray Tenzing there. How did he do on the stand? And how did the defense do? Let's get grades from our team of legal analysts, Mike Allen, Clyde Bennett, Mark Crumbine. You guys, I think this is the first time this has happened, but you guys all gave the same grade. Let's start with you, an A.
Yeah, I think he did great. I mean, he had to get out what he needed to get out to establish that defense of justification that he was legally justified in doing it because he was in fear of death or great bodily harm, and I think they did it.
A.
I gave Mr. Tenzing an A. I thought he was very well prepared. He was sympathetic. He had a very good, reasonable, plausible explanation for the inconsistencies, for his misperception regarding being dragged and being entangled by the steering wheel. I thought he did a great job, so I gave him an A, and I thought his lawyer did a great job of preparing him. He was either very, very afraid that day, or he deserves an Oscar.
All right, Mark.
I gave him an A also. I thought he seemed very sincere, and he was much more emotional this trial than he was the last time, I thought. And I think that helped him seem more truthful and sincere this time.
From Fox 19 Now, this is Breaking News.
And this is a live look into the courthouse. We expect something to happen. We expect something to happen momentarily. We heard earlier that the jury had another question. We heard about 3 hours ago the jury could not come to a decision in the Ray Tenzing murder retrial. The judge did the Allen charge and sent them back to go and try to work it out and come to some kind of resolution. Of course, this trial, the first time around, ended in a hung jury. Let's talk with Mike Allen about what could be going on. The camera's live now. It goes live like right before something happens in the courtroom, so we're expecting something to happen. What could that be?
Here's what I think is going to happen, Rob. I think the jury is going to send back another note to Judge Giz saying, we're deadlocked. then Judge Giz will have to decide whether she wants to read that Howard charge or Allen charge again. My guess is she probably won't. This jury is obviously hopelessly deadlocked.
And my question is, 31 hours so far, up until right now, the first jury deliberated 25 hours before that ended in a hung jury. How unusual is it for a judge to declare an Allen charge twice?
Oh, it happens frequently. Yeah, it does. I think it happened in Bill Cosby's trial just last week, if I'm not mistaken. I've had a number of trials where it happens. I think in this trial, though, based on the time that they've been out and what we're hearing about them being pretty hopelessly deadlocked, I don't think she'll read it again, but she could.
Well, in the Bill Cosby case, that jury deliberated for 57 hours. They were charged with the Allen charge twice. It's probably unlikely in this case, though, correct?
I would think so. Just again, based on what we're hearing about, some of the dynamics, I doubt it, but she could. I think she probably wants to end this thing this afternoon because you have the weekend. That's not to trivialize anything. Sure. And I know she wouldn't do that, nor would the jurors, but it just seems logical based on the fact they've been deliberating so long without a verdict.
And we heard yesterday that the jury had a question, and then we thought that question that the jury had was going to be released today. It was not. Do you make anything out of that?
No, I really don't. I don't know why. Obviously, Judge Giz felt there was a good reason for that, but I don't know what that could have been.
And then we just heard from inside the courtroom, all rise, which means that probably Judge Leslie Giz is getting ready to walk into the courtroom.
Either that or the jury or both. Jury might already be there. The jury might not be there too, Rob, but probably the judge, but maybe the judge and the jury.
And we're seeing the camera tilt up. The judge is at her desk. Let's listen in.
Okay. We are back on the record. The State of Ohio versus Raymond Tenzing, case number B153961. Mr. Tenzing is present with counsel, Mr. Matthews, and the state is represented by Mr. Teeger and Mr. Graffenreid. Everyone is present, as are our 12 jurors. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you sent a note out shortly, about a half an hour ago, that says we are almost evenly split regarding our votes toward a final verdict. We have given this extensive deliberation with opportunity for both sides to express their positions. We do not foresee coming to a unanimous decision. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this correct? Can you, everybody give me a head nod or, okay. Looks like that's where you are. Okay, counsel.
Judge, at this point, I would move for mistrial.
Mr. Teeger, in response?
No, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury and members of the public, at this time, this court is in a position and will have to, as a result of the jury being unable to reach a verdict, declare a mistrial in this case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we cannot thank you enough for your service. This has been a very long and difficult week. I know you did your very best. It is a service that is invaluable to the community, and you took something on that was incredibly difficult. And knowing how long and how difficult it may be, you still were willing to be members of this jury. So thank you very much on behalf of not only myself and my staff, but on behalf of the parties and the community. You will be excused at this time to return to the jury. Okay, all rise, please.
All right.
And you heard it right there. After 31 hours, the jury in Ray Tenzing's retrial ends in a hung jury. They can't come to a decision. We heard the judge say that we're almost evenly split. Is that why it took so long, do you think, to get to this point?
It could be, Rob. You just don't know. Hopefully, and usually the way it is, you find out more about the jury dynamics after the trial.
But once again, the jury comes to a hung jury in the trial. We see members of the DuBose family. Ma'am, do you have anything? Do you have any response? I'm sorry to hear this way. Yeah. And so that's members of the DuBose family leaving the courtroom. Once again, we did catch up with them yesterday, and they told us that they felt the jury was doing their job of looking at the charges, and even yesterday they felt really good that the jury would come to a decision of guilty in terms of Sam DuBose being killed by Ray Tenzing. But once again, it ends in a hung jury for the second time in the Ray Tenzing retrial. And as you can see, family are emotional because, once again, 2 years, nearly 2 years after Sam DuBose was shot and killed by Ray Tenzing, there is still no closure. And we're inside the courtroom. We were on floor 5. We are now on floor 4. Moments ago, we saw the DuBose family walk outside of the courtroom. They were very emotional. They did not want to talk. They got on the elevator. We saw that happen live. They came down to the 4th floor. And if you look behind me where all the cameras are, they're in that room trying to collect themselves. Apparently, one of the family members said that we don't want to talk right now, understandably, because they're very emotional. After 2 years, there's still no resolution in the death of Sam DuBose. Ray Tenzing's second trial ends in a hung jury. It ends in a mistrial. Robert Guadarrama was inside the courtroom when Judge Leslie Giz read that statement by family members, and the one thing she said that struck me was, we're almost evenly split. Did that strike you too?
Absolutely. You know, last time around it was a 10-2 split. So this time being evenly split, half and half, give or take one. Yeah, that sends a different message this time around, that there were half and half on each side of this.
We're going to have to go down to the first floor. We're going to keep walking and keep going live. So we're going to go down. Okay. So a nice guy from another channel said that the DuBose family, they don't want to talk right now. They're in that room right behind me. That's where they are right now, and they said that they don't want to have cameras in their faces as they walk out. You can understand that they're very emotional, and they said that they would give a statement on the first floor, so that's where we're headed. Robert, you talked about the jury and how they appeared. Tell me about how the DuBose family appeared when it was read that the jury could not come to a decision.
You know, Rob, we had talked with Trina Allen and Sam DuBose's mother, Audrey, and they had both told us that they were really hoping for a conviction this time around. They felt there was a good chance, the best chance, better than last time, for the jury to return a conviction. So you can imagine they were disappointed. As soon as that hung jury and mistrial was announced, I saw a lot of them put their heads down and start shaking their heads. A few of them had tears as they left the courtroom. As far as the Tenzing family, you could tell they kind of took a breath of relief after hearing that. So you can imagine the DuBose family trying to gather their emotions, gather their thoughts before they address the media. So that's where we're heading right now. They had told me that they would give us a statement once they just took some time to figure out what they wanted to say and be with each other for a few minutes.
Now, I talked to Mike Allen, who's with us as well, to give us his legal perspective. When it was read that it's going to end in a mistrial and a hung jury, I saw Ray Tenzing kind of put his fingers to his eyes.
Right.
He didn't seem like he felt like this was all in the clear.
That's right. And, you know, the possibility of another retrial, of lesser charges being added, he doesn't know. You know, if it would have come back not guilty, then he would know at that point that, you know, he wasn't going to face these charges again. So the fact that we have the possibility of another trial, that he'll have to come back here and start this process all over again, you can imagine that he did not want to hear that that being said.
Sure.
Now, I can tell you on July 24th, that is what Judge Giz, that's the date when the prosecutor's office will meet again with the judge and then tell her whether or not they plan to retry this case.
For a third time. And Mike, you say that the chances of that happening is what? If you were going to give a percentage? 50-50?
It depends. On murder and manslaughter, I'd say next to none. I just can't fathom doing that again. Perhaps if the prosecutor dismisses this indictment and reindicts on either reckless and or negligent homicide, yeah, we could have a third trial. So much of it depends on what that jury count is.
I wanted to just get your reaction. It looks like it's tough on you.
It's tough. You know, there's a lot of people who are hurting right now, and you know, after last week, I think people were just tired.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm tired too.
Yeah, no, I can understand. Do you have a message for the people who have formed up outside, and for the DuBose family and people who support them, and people who support this city?
If you protest, do it peacefully. It's a system issue. We've got to change it. This isn't okay. It's just, you got to change it. Just from the top to the bottom.
All right.
And people should vote.
Yeah. Councilwoman Yvette Simpson, she's also a council candidate for mayor. You saw her. She's very emotional. After her son is shot and killed, there is still no resolution. For the second time, after 31 hours, it ends in a mistrial, and we're hearing that it's evenly split. But once again, no resolution for the DuBose family after Sam DuBose is shot and killed nearly 2 years ago next month. They may talk a little bit later on. If you remember, the family was very optimistic yesterday and even the day before when we caught up with them in terms of how they felt about the jurors in this case coming to a verdict. They felt really good that it was going to come to a not guilty verdict, but we found out today that's not what happened on this rainy Friday afternoon outside of the Hamilton County Courthouse. We carried Yvette Simpson live. She was very emotional. You can imagine how the DuBose family feels. A member of the family wearing the hashtag Sam DuBose and a number 2. And we're just giving her space, and she's also wearing a Sam DuBose pin on the front of her dress. Pastor Mingo was helping her because, I mean, this is a super tough situation, and I know Pastor Mingo has been key in terms of helping this family out. You said earlier to me that the last year of work that you've done will hopefully make this resolution peaceful.
We prayed that the last year of work done throughout the city with police community relations and whatever, you know, that it bears some fruit. Right now, the family wants peace. The family wants reconciliation. The family does not want any upheaval. They don't want any violence. That's not the way they want Sam remembered. They want him remembered as the generous, caring, and young man that he was, a father, a credit to the community that's definitely going to be missed. Nothing can bring him back, but his memory right now, his memory, his legacy is something they want preserved. They don't want anyone else to go to jail. They don't want anybody else to be hurt. They don't want anybody's car to be set afire in his name. They don't want any street poles pulled down. They don't want any windows broken. They don't want any business destroyed. They want him remembered as the family member that he was to them and held dear to their hearts. And they don't want anyone to do anything that can be basically negative in his name, that can reflect negatively upon he or his family. They want the whole city to maintain peace and also keep them in prayer.
As we wrap up our coverage here of Ray Tensing's retrial, once again at about 2:10, the jury came back and said, we can't come to a verdict on this. So his second trial ends in a mistrial. We saw emotion from the DuBose family. They wouldn't speak with us on camera. We know everything is pretty calm outside of the courthouse, but the Black Lives Matter rally is being held, we're hearing, at 4 o'clock. So we're going to say goodbye for now, but make sure you download our app, because when news breaks, we're going to bring it to you on your mobile device, because I assume a lot of people are on the move.